So I think by this point we've established that they're just playing full random and they're playing two random civs. So this time we get what looks very, very much like Continental. Yes, indeed. And civilizations, Byzantines, Chinese, Teutons, and Turks for both teams. Let's have a look where the flanks are. Okay, right. We've got Skull as Teuton's flank in the yellow. His pocket's going to be Error as Turk's pocket in the blue. Other pocket Mango, Chinese, teal, and the top flank for CZ going to be Exit in the green as Byzantines. Facing off against him, Q as Chinese in grey, and then Moonlight is his pocket as Byzantines in purple. Didn't we just see Moonlight playing Byzantine pocket purple and just winning the game with a whole horde of elite catch effects? I'd love to see that again on Continental. Less likely to see it here, but it'd be fun. Licks being the other pocket for the Chinese team, in red as the Turks, and then mirror flanks actually down here, I think. Yes, indeed, we've got Teuton's mirror in the bottom flank down here. Paladin playing Teutons for the Chinese team in the orange. So looking at the map, the interesting thing I can see is that although the fish is kind of amazing everywhere, pretty much except behind Moonlight's base, where even though there's some fish, that there's not as much in this area. So hopefully for him he docks up here, because this is just a cornucopia of fishing. But the thing I wanted to mention was this huge area of water down here. This could be really important to control in the kind of mid to long term. And I think Paladin is in a better position to kind of control this area from, considering he'll probably end up building his docks down here. Skull may end up building them towards the edge of the map and not reinforcing that area, at least initially when their players only have a few docks each, not reinforcing it quite as quickly. Although he could go here as well potentially, although he may look at this water and think that's a bit too close to the centre of the map, I'd better not put my dock here, because we all know how that can go sometimes. For the other CZ players, there's a ton of X's coming out here. Hard to see. I mean, this is obviously a nice area to dock, so that makes sense. Exit may well. Let's have a look to his point of view. Let's have a look how he's looking at this. Doesn't know that this is a great dock area, so again, not sure why he's docking up here, but I guess they probably maybe looks at this channel of water and presumes that it goes all the way out there, because he can see this as well, and was already thinking about docking somewhere out there. But yeah, it seems like the CZ team are just being very active in flaring kind of where the corners of the land are, because that's almost where they can expect to see a little bit more deep water, placing more fishing. But it's going to be interesting to see the Teuton's mirror matchup on here, to see if and the bottom part of the map between Skull and Paladin in yellow and orange, just seeing how they play it, whether they both play it in a very mirrored way. Normally on a map like this you'd probably expect to see flanks grush, but obviously with Team Random, some different civ combos to usual, and players may have other ideas. Interesting thing as well is that the map is kind of deformed towards the bottom. Skull and Error being quite close together, and then there's this kind of inlet here which separates them from Paladin, who's kind of feels a bit like the odd one out, almost like in the way he's positioned together with Skull. It'd be interesting to see if this kind of narrow choke point really develops into a battlefield later on, especially as all the hills and the gold here as well. This is actually going to be an area for CZ that is going to become really important for them to kind of move forward and claim. You can see that Skull's TC is basically in the water at the back, and everything that he's going to want to be using resource-wise is forward for him. So he's got to spread out towards here, and eventually I expect we'll see castles on these hills trying to lay claim to these golds. And actually for Paladin, more or less the same thing. This gold is very, very far forward as a main gold and second gold in this area, so this will be hotly contested between Teuton's players. It'd be pretty interesting to see if they end up with those OP like tons of OP Teuton castles with the range bonus on the hills and stuff. That'd be pretty fun. Over here we see a... No, she's not going to die. She's going to stay alive. Thought a dock building villager for Q was going to get taken down by Exit's scout. But the villager is loomed and the scout is on low HP, and Exit needs to be careful not to loom, taking an extra free hit from the villager there and getting out of there just in time on 6 HP. It's a scout fight here, but Paladin's not going to take that. We'll probably retreat to the hill, and Mango thinks better of it. CZ team using X's like all the time to try and flare the layout of the land. Pretty interesting to see like how important they think it is to kind of map out that coastline. Well, obviously, having seen this now, Skull will know that there's a really large area of water in the bottom of the map, and that it's going to be important for his team. Even if he's not the one grushing, he'll signal it to his allies. But interestingly, like he's done a really good dock placement, but for Error, like his docks are way up in the left corner, whereas for Lix and Paladin on the right hand side, much closer together. And I feel like if they both grush, then they'll have a decent chance of being the ones who kind of push out and secure this massive area of wood in the water in the early game, and kind of push CZ and Skull in particular over here somewhere and deny them access to all the fish here. We'll have to see. This is going to be really interesting up here because we see grey and green have docked in within about 10 tiles of each other, although separated by this inlet, and their uptimes are going to be basically identical at 10:51 and 10:55, and it's going to be a fast rush between the two of them almost certainly, which it seems like Exit will be the one who gets the advantage with there, simply because he's going to have that second dock up way faster than Q will, unless of course Q isn't going for a grush but looking at his economy where he's transitioned exclusively to wood and gold. He is going for a grush, so actually no, he's doing another dock here. I completely didn't see it. I think I'd got the screen a little bit too far up. Okay, ignore me. The two players both getting a second dock at more or less the same time, and Q doing his third dock down here. I'm not sure about the decision to be doing all the extra docks in this little inlet. I mean, he can see the way it's laid out. I'm surprised he just didn't do them here, because I feel like it will aid him in massing up the galleys, because right now he's got two docks that are split as well. Like if Exit was to park his galleys right here, he's basically splitting Q's docks and therefore potentially splitting the navies. Q actually going for a villager snipe on Exit here, but not going to be successful in doing that, with one of Exit's galleys helping to pick off that scout. And you see pretty much 2v2 for galley fight kicking in now, but a few extra free hits for Q whilst that one galley was occupied and sniping down the villager. Right hand side, nothing much happening. Paladin being very defensive with his galleys, not even actually putting them on patrol either. Same defensive stance for Skull, although he seems perhaps just the tiniest bit behind Paladin. Not really crucial in any way. But now we're kind of seeing what could happen if the kind of split of Q's docks ends up playing out, because Exit reinforcing from these docks, basically driving a dagger between in Q's kind of reinforcement lines. And if Exit gets an advantage here, I think he'll be kind of poised to clean up Q quite nicely. But for now, Exit not really doing the best with his galley micro, kind of blundering into more galleys of Q there, trying to get finish off that one galley and make sure he picked it off, but taking a lot of hits in the process. And Q also doing a nice job of repairing his galleys at this point, pretty much WSVG style. Like we saw so much at the WSVG Maldives tournament, like way more than we were used to seeing. And that's what I always think of whenever I see people like repairing their first couple of galleys at the start of Feudal Age now. But looks like Q will want to repair this one and keep it alive. It's on just HP, 8 HP, sorry. And I think Exit's finding this a struggle to deal with. Mango's patrolling a scout here to keep Exit's villager alive, but considering that villager isn't actually doing any repairing or anything like that, but is actually now about to do that, it felt like Exit was struggling to kind of keep pace with Q in the fight, but now it's going to be pretty much even again. Castlade kicking in for Error and Mango, so both pockets for CZ. On the way to the Castle Age, we see Double Dock Fish Boom for Mango in the pocket as Chinese. Double Dock Fish Boom, likewise for Error. Oh, this dock, that is horrible. I didn't actually see if that was the first one for Moonlight. If that was Moonlight's first dock, like he might have got lucky with a deep fish in this deep water perhaps, but otherwise that might be why we see him being about a minute slower to the Castle Age if that was his first dock. These ones obviously much better. Other pocket, Licks also on the way to the Castle Age, so pretty much similar approaches for both teams, but CZ just a little bit quicker in getting their pockets to the Castle Age, and we'll have to see whether that proves decisive in any way. We can see that for Mango it's going to be looking like a one stable minute boom approach. We'll have to see if that's a minute boom into Knights or not. Error is going to go 2 stables as Turks. Moonlight is going to go... Well, he's completely walled off the front for starters, apart from this land crossing to his mate. We see a market, and presumably there's a blacksmith somewhere. Yeah, there is. But no other indication of what he might be doing, so perhaps he's going for a boom. Licks in the red. Lot of villagers on stone, so perhaps going to see castle drop from him, and Turks and Janissary in the castle. In fact, 5 villagers going forward already. Where's he going? Let's see. 700 stone. He's going to go castle drop. Where's he going to put it? Right on this hill, just outside Paladin's base. So perhaps Paladin grushes and then he's stonewalling, but maybe it's a grush into a sling? I don't know. Considering he went market and I don't know, it's interesting. But whether this castle goes up or not, Lix is just about going to get lucky, I think. He's had that light cav go forward, get line of sight to the camels of Error, but imagine if those camels had been positioned just slightly further forward, they would have seen all the villagers, but Lix managing to get the quick wall now, and that castle will go up. So it's going to be in a really good spot. It's not in the most strategically advantageous position as it would be if it was like over here, but that would have been incredibly optimistic to get the first castle up that far forward, and what it does do, provide Lix with a really good staging post to be producing those Janissaries from a forward position and trying to cause havoc with those. Top of the map, Moonlight aiding on land actually, so I said like is he going boom, but actually it was Fast Castle War Galleys to come and help out Q, and he's really pushing Exit back now. We see Mango trying to reply with a few fire ships, having gone Fast Castle himself, but with the number of galleys that are already out, especially the numbers from Q, from the Feudal Age galleys, just 1 or 2 fire ships kind of arriving one by one into the fray, really not going to be very effective at all, because they can basically just be focus fired down. So I feel like Fast Castle into galleys going to work out better, and it is working out better for Moonlight. Castle went up for Lix, and interestingly going to do it TC right in the middle of the map. Sent all these villagers all this way would be kind of a waste to send them all back, so why not build some eco up under the shelter of the castle. And now Janissary's coming out, actually flaring here, so maybe that's where he's going to go and focus his aggression, near to the shoreline where Paladin will be able to help him out. The bottom of the map, Skull, 24 galleys, Paladin with much the same number of galleys, and both of them on the way to Castle Age, more or less identical times. So first of all on the bottom side, both players being passive but also playing it in an almost identical way, and I said that at the start that both Teutons will always see a difference in approach. The answer is not really. I did mention that this land bridge hadn't been walled off for Moonlight, and now as a result of that, Error's found his way in with about 10 or so camels and knights, and going to be poised to do a decent amount of damage. It's like funny to see him run right under the TC of Moonlight, and there's not even anything there to garrison and to fire at the camels. Fortunately, perhaps for Moonlight, none of those units went over here to raid his villagers. Instead, they're going to go right on by and hit Lix, but Lix is in a little bit better position to defend, having 2 town centres already, and like importantly also having a few villagers near the town centres to at least garrison and fire a few arrows. But whilst that raiding comes in against Lix's home, he's through the walls and gonna be dealing absolutely massive damage to Skull, because Skull is playing full Grush and he's on the way to the Castle Age. He's really defenseless at this point against Janissaries. Like, Era can come in with some knights to try and deal with this, but there's... wow, GG. Okay. I mean, I can see it, I can understand why, but 23-minute game. Because the thing is, Skull was about to die, like he was going to lose everything. There's not much that Era can do, like 1 or 2 knights at a time against these Janissaries. He'd at least have to mass, and by that time Skull would probably have lost 10 or 15 villagers. In the north, it seemed that the Chinese were losing on water, but I almost feel that it could, there could have been a little bit of angry words amongst the CZ players on TeamSpeak or something, and maybe Skull wasn't very happy that this had been allowed to happen, that the enemy pocket had got all these Janissaries on him whilst he was full on water. But at the same time, he's only walling out with a palisade wall. Everyone knew that this castle was going up, got to expect it. So maybe, I don't know, just a little bit of raging going on, or that caused them to GG quite so early, even though I think that strategically the Chinese had taken a very, very big and decisive advantage on both sides, because they were going to do huge damage to Skull, and they also seemed to be winning the water. I don't know, like, it's decisive. It is potentially decisive advantage, but it's just a little bit early and surprising. But anyway, quick game. That means we can definitely look at doing a game 4. Interestingly, Era getting really far ahead in the boom, but not really doing anything. Like that one, not really doing anything with it. In fact, allowing Skull to be broken into by the Janissaries, which may have ultimately been the thing that caused them to call it. So that's 2-1 to the Chinese team in very, very quick fashion. So we'll see if game 4 is going to result in the series being tied at 2-2 and settles as a draw, or whether it will be a commanding 3-1 victory for China. Get that 4th game loaded up and head in. Oh, this is interesting. Highland by the looks of it. That's just... okay. It's in Chinese, so I can't tell. But it looks like it's Highland. They've been playing 4 random maps thus far, so it pretty much almost certainly is. This time, civilization is thrown up by the team random. We've got Celts, Britons, Japanese, and Goths, which is a pretty nice mix. Always interesting to see Japanese and Goths on the same in the same game, like for each team, because obviously Japanese teams can function really, really well to work against the Goth flood. Elite Samurai in particular being very effective against that. But then again, the Goths do very well against the Britons, but then like Celt infantry with like Woad Raiders, etc., and maybe heavy Scorpions if they boom up to siege can do very well against the Goths. So really interesting dynamics in the civs here. It'd be nice to see how that plays out. But looking at the map, you can see the crossings are quite numerous and the river is pretty narrow, so water control maybe not being the most important, because it's going to be pretty easy to just like sneak a castle. Even if you get all the crossings get walled off and you can't get across, it's going to be pretty easy to sneak a castle somewhere to get some docks out, or to just do a sneaky dock and get some villagers across via transport. Don't often see Highland on a 4v4 map or like this, so it's going to be pretty interesting. Also, weird little bit of water with a great little group of deep fish here, 3 of them. That would be nice to dock if any of the CZ team actually spot that. But taking a look at the players and their civs and their positions, got Error on the flank in blue as Goths. Pocket for him is Japanese, played by Skull in the yellow, and then other pocket Exit playing as the Celts in green, and finally on the far right flank for CZ we've got Mango playing as the Britons in teal. Facing off against him, Licks in the red as Goths. His pocket's going to be Moonlight in the purple as Celts, and on the other pocket for the Chinese team is Paladin in grey as the Britons, and then finally on the left flank Q in orange as the Japanese. So Japanese and Britons on the left hand side for Chinese team, not necessarily the strongest. It feels like the Goths and the Celts have the ability to potentially be the biggest powerhouses in this game, considering that Highland can go kind of more late game-ish, where Celts and Goths potentially the 2 strongest civs there. So, you know, it might be that if it's kind of developed into a 2v2, more like 2 dual 2v2s, then maybe the Chinese team on the left hand side could be needing a little bit of help from the right hand side. But equally, you know, on a map like this, player positions, given that it's kind of about crossing from one side to the other, player positions maybe aren't as important as like Arabia or something like that. Going to be easier for players to cross over and help each other, or even to like fortify one side and concentrate on the other, etc. But certainly in kind of civ matchups over here, Japanese and Goths probably going to work out better than Britons and Goths, so slight advantage to CZ on the left hand side if it splits into more dual 2v2s. And then on the right hand side we've got Celts and Goths, very very powerful against Celts and Britons, so again the same sort of thing in Gormid but almost in reverse. Chinese moving out very very early and getting their walls up on the middle, also like positioning scouts on the other shallows that they've not got walled off to get line of sight to see if any sneaks make it across, also make sure they get the walls where they want them to be. And Arrow sending a scout towards the left corner of the map, patrolling to see where that river goes, maybe also checking that there are no more shallows towards the edge of the map. And if walls go up for everyone on all sides, then you know we may see someone dock and do some galleys, but I think we're likely going to see more of a fast castle approach from both teams. Although, to be honest, actually looking at the fishing in the middle, it is pretty decent in places. There are some spots where there's like practically nothing apart from shorefish, but lots of really good deep fish in places, and that may incline some of the players to rush to fight for that. You look at Mango in particular, he's got like 5 deep fish within a few tiles of his dock here, and that could mean that he tries to do some galleys and fusiliers just to protect that, because it will be really nice to have continued access to that going into the Castle Age. It's not a best of 5. They just played 4 rated games, so this is basically to decide whether the series would be a draw or it's going to be 3-1 to China. Like I mentioned at the start, the Chinese team and different combination of Chinese players have been playing some prize money kind of tournament setting at best of 5s with the likes of Brazil, Finland and Vietnam, but this isn't one of those. It's literally just some Chinese players banding together to play some rated games against another strong national team. No prize money on the line here. I've been saying for ages I want to get China v Finland casted. I was gonna do that on Monday, but I wasn't feeling up to it on Monday. I was feeling a little bit under the weather and decided not to do it. And since then, I've been changing settings on my stream, and I wanted to see how this went with some recorded games, just rated games, before I cast China v Finland, because given that that was a $200 best of 5 that was played very, very seriously, rather than just being rated games played in like tournament mode, I want to make sure, like, I wanted to test that everything was going to be okay with these new stream settings before I did those games. So is it Paladin first up to the food layer, doing a second dock. So gonna be grushing the middle water here. Lick's not far behind, also doing a second dock, and he's gonna have a really big uptime advantage over Mango. So I was saying that Mango might want to be looking at doing some water to protect these fishing ships that he has. In all likelihood, he's going to lose them straight away, or they're at least going to have to run, and that may lead to Licks just getting completely on top of his docks. Going to be producing from 2 docks straight away, whilst Mango, let's just see if he's doing galleys from anywhere else. Don't see them at this point. Don't see him sending another dock to the middle. So he's actually only done 3 fishing ships as well, so possibly having just used those fishing ships to get a little bit of an early game boost, and then not going to invest too much in protecting those fishing ships and invest too much on water at all going forward. He's actually been charged with being the person who walls pretty much the entire right half of the map for CZ. Exit not having done any walling himself, whereas for, like, it looks like pretty much every other player on the map has been charged with walling the shallows that were closest to them. Interestingly though, there is one spot on the map that is open, and that's this shallow that is open on Ever's side now, or on the CZ side. Now, the Chinese don't know this, at least until Paladin's galleys uncover that fact, but it'll be interesting to see if there's any kind of reaction to that, like whether they try and sneak something across once they realise that this spot isn't walled, because they will have seen, or they will see with the galleys, that everything else is walled. So it's kind of interesting that this has been left open. I wonder whether it was just a mistake by the CZ team, like they didn't communicate about who was supposed to go and do this, or whether it's deliberate because they want to push out across there themselves. See that Skull is going to go stable as Japanese, which is interesting. So maybe that got left open because Skull was going to go across, but he's going to have a little bit of difficulty breaking through there, potentially, unless he gets transported by one of his allies. But Error's losing on water, Skull isn't on water, Exit isn't on water either, and Mango has lost the water, so no transport option for Skull. And if he wants to actually go aggressive with Knights at all, then he's going to need probably maybe a battering ram or something to go over there and break through quickly without getting destroyed by some galleys. But we also already see Stonewall coming up for Paladin, so I don't think Skull's going to have any luck in going aggressive with Knights. But at the same time, Error going stable as well, so again the same applies to him. How is he going to get those Knights across there remains to be seen. Market Blacksmith for Exit, he's Celt, so I assume he's going to boom. And Market for Mango in the teal is the Britain, so he's probably going to do Britain's boom as well on the way to the Castle Asia, pretty much the same time as Exit. Red's going to be a bit delayed in those terms because he did 2-dot Grush and wiped Mango off the water. Probably will be able to add a few more fishing ships now. We see him going up to a 6 or 7, take advantage of all those fish that actually 3 docks, all those fish that I said Mango would have liked to protect but wasn't able to. But whilst I've been looking at all of that, we see a sneak came in for Q. I was too busy focusing on the right hand side. Meanwhile, on the left hand side, Q did a land over here. I wonder if it was a landing or a sneak villager. Wow. Has that sneak villager like been there since the start of the game. I didn't see it come over, but like I probably would have noticed the orange dot hiding in the trees if it was been there the whole time. Like we haven't seen a transport ship, so it must have just been a sneak through the walls or before the walls were done. But those archers didn't do tons of damage to Error in terms of inflicting casualties thus far, but Error is at least not on gold anymore. Let's have forced to retreat from his gold mine, and yeah, not much gold in the bank, and actually has come. Oh no, he's brought all of it down here, so he'll have the gold in the bank, but he's not going to be. Oh, sorry, he's in the Castle Age. Never mind, I wasn't looking. I just assumed that he was feudal, but he's obviously in the Castle Age. It's late. Give me a break. So archers from Q not able to do too much to Error. They will have seen the stable as well and probably know that they might be vulnerable to Knights. So coming over here to have a look at Skull, but Knight's going to be out for Skull as well, and they will clean up those archers really easily. So sneak for Q, not going to be that effective by the looks of it. The rest of the archers are hiding over here. I wonder for... yeah, they don't know where the sneak is at this point, but maybe this knight will find it. For now though, I'd say that the Chinese team is taking a pretty decisive advantage in terms of map control. They have the middle water. Transport ship has come out for them, so looks like they're going to try and transport in across the middle around the walls of Seahead in another place as well. Is anything striking out to board this transport? I can't see. Error did locate those ranges, and we see a siege workshop coming up together to push that sneak with the knights. Obviously the archers can retreat to this very narrow gap. I don't know if this was forethought by Q, but it's working out pretty well for him that he can retreat to stand in the gap and the little hill that's there as well. But once a mangonel comes out, that will be a deadly trap for him. But yeah, as I was saying, Chinese having control of the... okay, Mango replying with some fire ships now, so he might... maybe CZ will be able to not be kind of open to attacks and landings from all areas now. If CZ is able to kind of... well, sorry, if Mango is able to fight back against the Chinese on the water, but there are a lot of galleys here, and the space is quite cramped to get a lot of fire ships surrounding the galleys. Like micro with the galleys will should prove effective here, but obviously they will have to keep running from the fire ships. But as somebody in the chat is saying, like CZ, they wanted some players to boom, but they gave up the water rather easily in the middle. All those archers being cleared up really easily by Mangonel and some knights now. But yeah, they kind of gave up the middle area really easily, made themselves vulnerable to a landing, but that wasn't a very successful, well, sneak rather than landing. I'm pretty sure it was a sneak from early by now, but wasn't very successful for Q, and it will have put him quite behind. Still in the feudal age, and let's check his point of view to see how he's doing for resources. He's got 1,000 wood in the bank. Why is Q sitting on 1,100 wood? What is he doing? It's like he... nice attack ground shot by Error there. Looks like Mango in the middle has done an okay job against, or a good job in fact, against the Chinese galleys, considering their numbers have decreased quite a lot to be about 13 now. 13 galleys or so against Mango's fire ships, and he'll be able to take that fight. So Mango at least doing the job of taking back some strategic control on the right hand side here. But as I said, on the whole, like until Mango replied with some fire ships, I see demo ships coming out for licks to try and reply against that. But until Mango did those fire ships, like it looked like CZ were just kind of retreating into their shell and ceding the map control, making themselves very vulnerable to all kinds of landings and sneaks and crossings. For now, it seems like stabilization in pretty much all of the map. Besides a couple of stray Knights of Skull that have made it across. Let's see where they're actually... I mean, I saw them running around here. I don't know whether they got through that gate while all those walls whilst they were being built. But multiple TCs up for Paladin now. Should be able to defend against these Knights from Skull pretty easy at this point. But Paladin will do a Monastery anyway to make sure that those Knights can't be any more nuisance to him than they need to be. Actually, Skull managed to get a villager across, but Moonlight has seen it and X'd it, so that it's actually a sneak TC from Skull, but it's going to be dealt with by the Chinese team sooner rather than later. Paladin Scout actually going to find it right now, and see all of the Chinese players kind of doing stuff to defend against Knights as well. We've seen Monastery coming out there, extra barracks coming out here, although those will obviously be useful for the Celts anyway later on if they want to do lots of halves or even champions. Seems like these Knights for Skull actually managing to be slightly more effective than I thought they would be, finding the best spot in Paladin's base to raid, because he's got TCs everywhere except at this lumber line, this lumber camp. Villagers obviously having to run a long way to get to the TC. The monks weren't ready to assist with conversions and picking up a nice number of kills there. So Paladin taken down to just 42 villagers despite being on a Britain's boom with multiple TCs after initially going water. Meanwhile, Moonlight is booming crazy well on 86, as well as Exit on 90, Skull on 80. So 3 players with really good booms, but other than that, like all Chinese players looking kind of behind, all on 40 something villagers, and it's kind of understandable given that they all went somewhat, or most of them went somewhat heavily on water. We saw Red doing some galleys, we saw Grey doing some galleys, and I think Orange did some and then transitioned to landing. But they want to be careful that CZ don't get ahead of them, because all of their players are at least kind of, well, 2 of them are kind of level with Moonlight, and then the other 2 are ahead in terms of booming. So, you know, CZ could end up getting ahead in game stage, having more players in the kind of Imperial Age, transitioning into their late game armies a lot earlier than the Chinese, who could be reliant on Moonlight to defend them for quite some time. And Exit is actually 2/3 of the way to the Imperial Age, going to be the first by quite some distance. Lick's clicking up just now. So what's that going to be? It's going to be Celts and then Celts and then Goths up to the Imperial Age. And both of those on the same side, so we could see those 2 civs kind of facing off pretty early. Exit's gonna go into Elite Warriors, getting his second castle built now, along with lots of siege workshops on the front. Given that he's facing off against Celts and Goths, we may see heavy scorps from him, because that would work pretty well against the infantry flood that he's sure to face, although if Celts do onagers, or even if the Goths do bombard cannons, they may not work so well alone. Third castle coming up for Exit, gonna be right next to the water. Potentially you're going to allow CZ to take back some water control and do a little bit of redocking to at least sneak across if they want to. But using the water control that the Chinese team have, Lix has snuck across on the right hand side. He's trying to do a castle on the CZ side. That's going to be located by some Woad Raiders from Exit, but those villagers should be adequately protected by the galleys at the shore, as long as they kind of just run away and allow the Woad Raiders to be shot at, which they are indeed doing. So it feels like that castle from Lix could have been about to go up, but hot on the heels of the Woad Raiders, or perhaps not so hot considering they're so slow, we see 4 cap rams from Exit, and they'll be able to take down that castle. So Lick's unfortunately going to have to delete a castle that was 50% built, losing 300 or so stone in the process, and he's going to have to rebuild that on his side, which we don't see him doing just for now, instead dropping a ton of barrack to defend against Exit's push. Redocking coming in from Mango under the shelter of Exit's castle, so going to be looking to maybe do a large navy as well, considering the number of docks that he's throwing up in order to regain some control of the middle water. Skull, meanwhile, whilst Paladin has been kind of AFK with his galleys, the few galleys that he had in defending over here a bit, and I think some towards the left side of the map, has managed to sneak a ton of docks into the middle. And now with players in the Imperial, well, more players in the Imperial Age. Actually, that's a lie, but it's about to be. Skull in the Imperial Age and Mango in the Imperial Age as well, joining Exit. It feels like CZ may well be poised to retake the water, considering that they've got two players committing pretty heavily to it and redocking in nice positions. And right now, like, the Chinese team don't have that many galleys left, so could see a kind of reversal of their map control here. Just gonna have a look in the corner, see if we've got any funny stuff going on. Paladin has built a ton of outposts on the left to see if there's any sneaking going on there. Nothing happening on the right hand side. So really it's all about the water control and players massing for push in the sort of middle right, considering the left side is still sort of safe with Paladin defending with a few galleys, getting line of sight with outposts and stuff, and then Q stonewalling at the crossing. So it's going to be in the middle. It's going to be Skull trying to retake water control. Moonlight, as the Celts spamming a ton of castles on the water's edge to try and shoot back at those galleys that are coming out for Skull, and actually a third castle coming up in this spot. So I really question how Skull's going to be able to mass up too much here. All of those docks may end up being a kind of poor return investment for him. But on the right hand side, okay, it's just a block of colour on the map, but it's not really too much. Like, Mango is doing some galleys over here, but Lix could reply to that if he wanted to, with how few galleys that is for the moment. Exit doing trebs and a ton of siege rams, nicely moving those siege rams to the shorter tanks of Paladin's galley fire. Will be able to fire at all of Moonlight's castles, and that may provide Skull with the kind of breathing room he needs to get more galleys massed up and more galleys out of these docks, because it looks like Exit just about winning this treb war for now, taking down a castle even as two trebs from Moonlight fire upon his own trebs. Doesn't really feel like Exit's ready to push though. He has a good number of siege rams, but only using those as shields on the shoreline for the moment, and doesn't have Elite Woad Raider done. Actually just kicking in now, but still numbers and upgrades kind of missing for him to push just yet. Skull just remassing some galleys here. Left hand side feels like Error is just pure boom, 120 zills on the military. Q likewise, although so far behind in boom. Going for Bodkin and Ballistics. He's going to try and retake water on the left hand side as well. Right side, we see markets for China trying to do trade right in that corner. It's not going to be that efficient because it's going to have to, like, the carts will be bumping past each other or going through these narrow areas, and the crucial thing is that they need water control to make that trade work. And right now, on the right, like far right at least, they don't have it. Mango is the person controlling the water here with these teal galleys, and continuing to take control of the shoreline more and more. Lots of castles coming up, destroying red docks, and I really don't think this trade is going to be very successful or even get off the ground for China. Meanwhile, Exit continues to just wipe out all of these castles for Moonlight. So even though they look great to begin with, because they were firing upon all of Exit's docks and galleys as he built them, they've been knocked down pretty quickly with very little return, and it's starting to feel like kind of a waste of stone for Moonlight now to be losing 3 castles. And as a Celts player who wants to be making lots of elite woads, that's pretty costly, because Exit is on 3 castles of his own and producing lots of woads now, whereas haven't really. Okay, Moonlight does have some of his own, but numbers are fewer, and he's been forced to rebuild some more castles here, and adding in some pikes as well. So going to be mixing in helps, which, if he's facing off directly against Exit with just pure Woad Raider, not going to be great for him. isn't the woad spam dangerous when there can be samurai in the field eventually? Yes, indeed. Although that at least for the woads they can kind of run away from the samurai. Same thing, kind of dynamic with the potential that there can be lots of Huskars as well. Like they, wouldn't work out very well in a straight up fight, and because Japanese could come over with their samurai and take the Huskars down pretty quickly. But the thing is, like, both of those units can be used more as like raiding units or hit and run units, do a fast push and then kind of disappear and push somewhere else, because they have just such a speed advantage over the samurai. So I think they're still worth doing. You just don't want to get into a pitched battle against them. Kind of some kind of weird slowdown in the recorded game. We saw this in the Oasis game, and I think it's kind of present in the game itself, so it's reflective of the conditions that the players are playing in, perhaps with some lag. Because when this happened earlier, I checked my CPU resources, and like they were like 65%, so it wasn't my CPU maxing out. Right hand side, Mango has done a great job now. He's like remassed so much in the water, and as I said, this trade going to be nothing, and even Lix's attempt to sneakily redock has been picked up by Mango. So I think the kind of map control, I said earlier on, like CZ were really exceeding all of the map control of China, being very defensive whilst not actually producing that much to defend. But it worked out that through like being fast in the Imperial Age, getting some redocking in some nice places, backed up by castle here and there, and then massing galleons, they've really kind of taken control of the middle area from China, and also like Exit has done a decent amount of pushing in the middle. Like there was a kind of reasonably sized battle over here with Moonlight facing off Woad Raider versus Woad Raider, and that's pretty much like nothing decisive for either player, but at least Exit's taken out 3 castles here, and is now onto 5 himself, whereas his Celt opponent Moonlight just onto 3. I want to see what's going on with Q, because last time we saw he was just pure boom, and then dropping some docks. He's starting to remass galleys. Nothing on the land for him just now in terms of army. For Error, he's now streaming champions as Goths. So Woad Raiders for Moonlight going to work out pretty well against them, considering they can kind of hunt them down with their increased speed, and are slightly better anyway because of the better HP. But it feels like Error's kind of managing to do a decent amount of damage here. In fact, lots of skeletons here, so missed a kind of reasonably sized fight here where Error has streamed champions and done some damage to this area of Paladin's economy. Interesting thing, like whilst Moonlight is tasked with defending Paladin against the swarm of champions, because Paladin just doesn't have anything here, that means that Exit's kind of free to push on the right, and now Lix is locking in a horrible situation. He's being absolutely wrecked by Exit now. Siege Rams coming in en masse, backed up by Woad Raiders raiding for Exit. That's going to wipe out Lix, because Lix, like, he wasn't concentrating on this. He was concentrating on trying to redock against Mango, and then just as Error becomes a factor in the game, he starts attacking Paladin, he diverts Moonlight's attention to the left hand side, and then Exit just comes in, absolutely wrecks Lix. And I think that is why we're seeing GG. It's the damage that's being done to Lix ultimately, and Q is just so far behind. Like he's Q more or less tucked himself out of this game the moment his sneak failed. Like he did some water that he eventually lost anyway. I think he did some water anyway, but then he did this sneak that went down here. It got found, it got wiped out because like both players on the left hand side did at least one stable, and then one mangonel shot was ripped the rest of the archers. Like as soon as that sneak happened, after he'd also done some water as well, he was so far behind, and then like he spent the whole game booming, just about did some docks, and then by the time he's doing anything, it's GG anyway because the right side's collapsed. Like Lix, not too sure what he's doing either, because like he wasn't really fighting on the land, but he didn't do that much water, and like he lost the water to Mango when Mango did fire ships, but then like besides some attempts to redock, like he didn't do that much. And then I think for Moonlight, something that really cost him, like his castle placement. They just all got trebbed down. That's the problem with putting them here. Like, it's so easy to tread them down from the far side of the shoreline. So that was 3 castles built on top of Skull's docks, which were easy to just rebuild over here, and they all got trebbed down for nothing, which meant that Exit had kind of the initiative in woad production, because Moonlight was always trailing him, and we saw that, like, as soon as Moonlight's woads were diverted to one place to reply against Error's champions, there was literally nothing that could be done on the right hand side. He had no capacity to divert woads over here. So, a bit of a weird game, because it felt like China taking all the control in the early game, but a couple of their players kind of did a bit of grushing, did a bit of sneak, and then just kind of disappeared from the game. Whereas I think for the CZ team, like, all of the players were a factor. They all pulled their weight. No one really as anonymous as some of the Chinese players were. So let's just have a little look at the achievement, see if we see anything interesting. Like, Lick's just losing a lot, but that's because his base was getting wrecked. Moonlight, did pretty well, kind of replying to the push from Exit and then Paladin, but it was basically only him having an army on land for the Chinese team. Everybody else was pretty much late. Like, he was the only one that was booming. We were looking in the mid game at Moonlight. He had 80 odd villagers, and everybody else in the Chinese team had 40 plus, whereas the CZ team had like 2 with 80 and 2 with 60. So we're in a much better position towards getting more players into the late game and able to do something meaningful. And I think that was the story of it, really. It was booming pretty massive. Holy crap! Mangoes are 146. Like, look at all this booming from the CZ team. Like, they got so high in villages, whereas SY China just lagging behind for the most part, apart from Moonlight. I mean, not only did the others not get close, but they were kind of late with the villager production all game, whereas Moonlight was keeping tabs with the boomers on the CZ team. Right, so that makes the score between the two teams 2-2, and then, like I said, this wasn't a rated best of 5. It wasn't a best of 5 like competitive tournament set. It was 4 rated games between them. For whatever reason, they didn't decide to play a 5th and settle it. It's kind of a shame, but a draw is okay as well. It leaves both teams feeling like they've come away with something to talk about it in football terms. So, I'd love to have a little bit of feedback from the chat about the actual stream itself, because, like I said, I was testing some different settings. Like, the resolution was slightly lower than what you normally see from me, because normally I'm in 1080p. This was downscaled to 864p, weird number I know, but the custom settings were done with the idea of stopping the screen from kind of blurring and tearing when the screen moves. If you noticed a difference with that and you thought it was good, let me know. If the stream was kind of like freezing a little bit or anything like that, then I'm looking for that, because these are different settings, like loading my CPU in a different way. And something like I had to pay attention to was like scrolling the screen sometimes causes a bit of a CPU spike, because that's when the custom setting kick in to get rid of the blur. Source quality required for the lower res and high is basically illegible. Yeah, that was my... When you say illegible, that almost seems like it's referring to the letters, like reading some of the words on the screen. Is it, on high quality, is it still like the actual game is watchable, but you're struggling to read the letters, the words on the screen, like the overlay and the scores, etc.? That's something I'm interested in. But I think ultimately the advantages of the reduced blur are kind of outweigh that, as long as the game looks fine. Like, I can also experiment with reducing the bit rate slightly without probably no negative effects of that. I'll have to see what the kind of threshold for good quality on is considering that theoretically using a lower a lower resolution should allow a lower bitrate. But yeah, I'll probably experiment with that in coming streams, trying to find the right balance, because it means like more people can then watch on Source. If I can lower the bitrate by, I don't know, whatever I can lower it by, it will allow people with slightly slower internet to watch on Source. So we'll see. But yeah, thanks for the feedback, guys. That's useful stuff. And now that this stream has gone successfully and the new settings appear to be a success, I can think about actually using them to cast China v Finland some point in the near future, and also tournament casts at the weekend, because we've got a bunch of stuff actually. Whilst I'm here and we've got a decent viewership, I'll just mention some of the things that are going on at the weekend. We've got, on Saturday, we have Vodka attempting to win Call to Arms because he's beaten 5 people thus far, and he's going to use his last 3 civs. He's going to be facing off against VNS Yellow, which should be absolutely amazing fun, because Vodka's so aggressive in Call to Arms. Yellow, as we know, very interesting player, loves to forward, always going aggressive or most of the time. That's going to be done Saturday 15 GMT by Milmano. Then an hour after that, we've got Masters of Mega Random on Voobly Stream, between Mentalist and Doubt, that will be casted by Killer B. So those 2 streams overlapping somewhat. And then on Sunday 18 GMT, I'm going to do MBL v Clemens Tour here on Voobly Official in the deathmatch. So it might be more added to the calendar for the weekend, but that's what's coming up. And depending on my time, I might try and make a start on the Finland v China series, and more may yet be added to the calendar. But cheers for the feedback, guys, and cheers for watching. And I'll see you soon, I guess. Good night.